Hello and welcome to the Grassroots Gardening Podcast with your hosts Matt and Mike, where we talk about what it's like to own and operate a gardening business inside of the UK. We talk about gardening, we talk about business, we talk about tools. Make sure you stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to another episode. So we've got a great episode for you guys today. We've got Austin from Allett Mowers, and Austin is the managing director of Allett Mowers, and I'm sure you guys have seen in the industry that Allett Mowers are a fantastic provider of cylinder mowers, and from what I can see, very, very innovative. And I personally don't use Allett Mowers, but I'm really, really looking forward to kind of delving into Austin's story about how he got into the industry and just generally a little bit about cylinder mowers. So welcome, Austin. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy.
Thanks for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
No, you're very welcome. So where did it all start for you in terms of the green industry? How long have you been around, and kind of, just talk about kind of like where you started from?
Sure. So, where did I start? Gosh, I'm getting on a bit now. I'm quite a bit older than you guys. So let me think back. So for me, when I was at school, I worked on a market garden. That's what I did. Yeah. My dad's a plumber. My mum was a primary school teacher, and Dad kicked me out at 13, saying it's about time you went, and your pocket money's stopping. You better go and get a job. So I went and worked on a market garden, picking potatoes, spraying, all that type of stuff in a tunnel, strawberries, whatever. And I absolutely loved that. But the main thing it taught me, sort of from the 5 years till I left home then, was that every time you're doing a manual job, I'm going, there's got to be a better way than this. Yeah, there's got to be a better way. We all do it. We all use it. If only this mower was a little bit wider, if it only did the edging at the same time, and all that type of stuff. But machinery for me is absolutely everything. Yeah. I put my hand on the tractor bonnet. I can tell you how she feels. I absolutely love machinery. So I then went and did agricultural engineering at Ritter Agricultural College. So machinery is absolutely my thing, and then if we can make it mathematical, that's even better. So when I finished, I went and did 3 years at college. And when I left, I went and worked. I decided I was to go and do something voluntary. So I went and did VSO, which I think is just about going still now. That's voluntary service overseas. I got a 2-year placement in Fiji in the South Pacific. School out in the bush. And I taught agricultural engineering. So, and in 2 years, when you're working in developing countries, I had a fantastic opportunity. I was head of department at a 2,000 student school, and the older students would taught vocational subjects. So they'd go back to their villages and improve the village life. So I had quite a time there, a couple of military coups, arrested, held at gunpoint, all sorts of interesting things that only happen to you in developing countries.
Wow. I'm not too far into that for you.
The reason I was arrested, whatever, was because of the military coups. Honestly, not because of anything else. And when I came home again, I'd like, I need a plan. So I didn't go into agriculture or agricultural engineering. The agricultural machinery industry is not very strong in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and joined a company that was importing and distributing turf harvesting equipment and mowers and things like that, a company called Turfland, and they were distributing Brower equipment. And I was with them for a few years and worked my way up to leading that machinery business. So I'm now 25. And I decided actually that I could do a better job myself, I suppose. That's what you do. We've got to treat customers better than this. We've got to get more resources in place to make sure customers are looked after properly. So I actually started by importing some products from Canada. And that's how I got going. Literally, my ex-wife and I sold up our houses. We put all the money into the business, which I think at that time was this is in 1990. And we put all our money into the business, moved in with my mum and dad at their farmhouse, where I got a bit of a yard that I could operate from. And just me on my own. We started importing, distributing machinery. I did a bit of contracting on golf courses with the machines I was importing, made my demonstration stock work a little bit harder. And before I knew where I was actually improving the products, then went, actually, I may as well build this myself now because it's more improvement than it was original product. And so I rented an industrial unit and got a welder, a guillotine, and started cutting steel, painting all night, welding all day, and started to take some people on. And so that was primarily aimed at golf course equipment.
Yeah.
So I imported and distributed some machines, started manufacturing more machines, and basically built that up over time. We had a few lucky breaks. I met Ian Waddington from Multicore, who was importing an Australian coring machine.
Yeah.
John Deere bought him out, or rather bought the manufacturer out, and he was left with no products. So he came to me and said, "How about could you make one of these machines, or something similar to this machine, should we say?" And we said yes, and that was 5 weeks before Windsor show, the Saltex show. Yeah. And in 5 weeks we had them a range of 3 machines on their stand ready to go, and that product was really successful.
That's amazing.
They sold hundreds of them all over the world. And so, we had a few looking at a lot of the products we built. Everyone told us, if only you could do this, it would be absolutely amazing. So you build the product and ta-da, there it does exactly what you say. Oh, that's a lot of money, isn't it? And yeah, very nice. Well done. Well, are you going to buy one now? Well, I didn't say I was going to buy one. I said it would be a nice idea if we can have a machine just like this. So, you make a lot of mistakes along the way. Yeah. And you think, well, actually, what I need to do is listen to my customers more carefully than that. And I need to speak to more of those customers to make sure that they're all asking for the same thing, because that's the key one. You might end up with some guy that has a harebrained idea, but actually you want to listen to the ones that are saying it's obvious. We're in a horse and cart, and we really need something that's motorized and doesn't need to eat. And and although Henry Ford would disagree with me, that isn't what the customers were asking for at the time. They were asking for the faster horse, right? But actually, it's about listening to customers, and I think that is exactly the same for any business. You're not listening carefully to what your customers are telling you, and you're not taking the time to speak to your customers, then you don't know how you can add more value or how you can earn more or how you can grow your business. And so that's what we did, and we just built that up and up. 2008 was really tough. It will be before you guys can probably remember, but 2008 was financial crash.
I was working.
And all golf courses went from being you'll have to wait until somebody dies before you can join, to free 6 months membership, because all their members just dropped out. And I was also selling a whole range of turf production equipment as well, big harvesting machines, £200,000 a time, and that's a building material my customers were producing, and building stopped overnight. So fortunately, a couple of years before that, 2007, I bought Allett Mowers.
Yeah.
It was a business that was stumbling along a little bit. I think it was doing about £1 million worth of sales. They hadn't really made any profit for several years. And but they got some really good base products, and they got some really good following. So we'd taken that product range on and absorbed that into the business. My original business was called Turf Mech. We absorbed Allett Mowers in, but a couple of years after that, we then bought all the assets, all the machinery, the tooling, the design rights to all the Atco product range, which included Suffolk Punch. Names these are Suffolk Punch, and also Qualcast. And the idea of that was the mowers was going really well, but it was only professional products. And we said, actually, let's make a wider range of cylinder mowers. And I sold off all the designs for all my other golf course products I was making, and we just focused. As of 2012, we just focused on cylinder mowers. We changed the name of the company to Allett, and which I own the rights to and everything. And so all we've done since then is just relentlessly try and get higher quality product, reach a wider audience around the world. And as you say, the innovation for me is the big thing. I'm a lawnmower manufacturer in the UK. the average factory worker today in an engineering works in China earns less than $6,000 a year. And the factories are for nothing. The Chinese government will give you all the money you want to build a factory if you can fill it. And so it's really difficult to compete against the Chinese.
100%.
We all buy Chinese stuff, right?
Yeah.
But one of the advantages you have when you were clearing leaves today is you're not going to have to compete against a Chinaman that's going to come in and do it for half the price.
Yeah, no, 100%.
When you're a machinery manufacturer, that's a different matter.
Yeah, you've got to add something. If you're trying to compete at the budget end of the market, trying to sell the benefit of having a UK-based manufacturing versus Chinese, you're going to really struggle. You've got to offer something quite significantly different. And yeah, I believe that you do. So it's...
and how do you do that? That is always the thing for me, is how do you innovate in your business? And it doesn't matter what you do. If you think there's no innovation available in your business, then you're wrong, because somebody else is going to be innovating in your business. So are you going to do it first? Are you going to take a few wrong turns? Because you always do when you're innovating. And for me, the big thing was cylinder mowers. They use so much less power than a rotary mower. So they're really easy to drive. You don't need a big engine on. And also, if you turn the engine off, they're really, really quiet. So to drive them by electric, for me, was just an absolute no-brainer. And that is my part of the relentless move forward with the business and the relentless innovation in the business has all been about driving these mowers electrically.
I mean, we saw the is it the Sterling that uses the Ego system? We saw that at Soltex last year when it was I think it was unveiled at like 2 p.m. or something. That was actually really quite staggering, really, to be honest, because obviously Ego had released a couple of different products. Like they released the separate engine that you could one day put onto something else, and a couple of other bits. But yeah, to have that option, and I know there's quite a few more options now that they've got, but yeah, that was very much the first. And to see it on a UK brand when they're an American-based company was also quite it was nice. It was nice to see, to be honest. And I think for me, it was the fact that it looked cool. And I know that sounds really silly, but like I've got an image of like my granddad using a cylinder mower. He had an old Qualcast, and he was like, it kind of looked like something from like the Norman Wisdom films. Like they always do. They're not really, but that actually looks like something you'd like want to own. And the design looks really good.
And that's really nice of you to say. And I've got some fantastic design engineers work in the business. And that probably leads onto at some stage the people in your business. But we've got some really fantastic people in the business. And you're right. You've got to make it so that it looks like a cylinder mower. It's absolutely a cylinder mower. But how does it look so much more special? Because I have to be honest that the majority of people that buy our machines for their homeowners or even for work, it's men, and the decision makers are generally over 50 years old. And you need to have something that still looks purposeful, but at the same time looks modern. But it still has the heritage look, the red cylinder. You just can't move away from having a red cylinder, because that's what cylinder mowers have, right? So really nice of you for you to say that, and that is absolutely what our market research says. And our market research is quite simply, what do you think of this? What do you like? Oh, it looks lovely. What do you like about it? And then you can try and pick out the essence of what it is, because styling is really important. And if you're buying a British-made product, I need to have styling in it because it's part of the value proposition. And if you go onto YouTube or TikTok, you see guys at the moment, I think they're all putting their Sterling to bed, and I mean, they're literally taking it in the garage, putting a blanket over it and lying down next to it.
I've seen some of the social media stuff with like the guy taking it out. Taking it to bed with him. It's hilarious. It's hilarious, some of that stuff. But do you know what? It's a big purchase. Compared to what you could have, a cheap rotary home mower that plugs into the wall. So it's an expensive purchase, and you do have to have it as a hobby. Okay, you really do to be spending those types of money. And yes, it gives you a benefit, but like, yeah, you have to really kind of be into it. And I think you do have quite a loyal following of like Allett fans, and I think any kind of higher end brand tends to attract certain people, but you do really seem to have like an incredibly loyal following, which is an interesting one because obviously they don't purchase a new one every year of the cylinder mower. That's got to be like on a cycle of what, 5 to 10 years
at least. Yeah,
yeah.
I think we've done surveys, and even the homeowners are replacing that product between 12 and 20 years.
Wow, right,
And
okay.
our professional
Long
users that
life
are using
cycle.
them every day. It's 14 to 16 years. I mean, there are outliers. People that keep them going for 25 years, and people have replaced them earlier. But yeah, for 14 to 16 years, I think, on our professional products. So it's really, you're dead right. You know, these guys aren't really coming back very regularly to replace their mower, and the homeowner especially.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting. I guess the fans, so they're promoting you and they're giving you, they're giving you free PR, and there's nothing better than a personal recommendation of somebody that's used it. But they're not repeat customers, which is really over a short-term period. I guess I guess the battery might add an extra, like that might shorten the time down a little bit, because 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons go past of seeing these batteries, and it might just kind of encourage a bit of a newer market. Because you've got your own range of batteries as well, haven't you? As on top of the
not yet, not unless you've been in my R&D shop. We are using.
Sorry, I thought I saw it on the website. Sorry.
No. So we're using Ego battery on the premium homeowner products, and then we're using Greenworks and Kramer batteries.
Okay, right.
On the more sort of they're not, I call them budget. They're not budget. They're still very expensive mowers. But also 82 volt systems on our professional products as well.
Right.
So we really love this interchangeable battery idea, because the batteries are such an important, an expensive part of it. Mm-hmm. And I can try and justify it saying, well, yeah, you're never going to buy petrol ever again, but actually that's still quite a difficult justification. But if I can take that battery out and use it in my blower, my edger, my hedge cutter, then really the price of the battery doesn't get attached to the mower so much as it does to all the other equipment as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a big Ego user, and pretty much everything but the mowers. That's just a cost thing. I use Hater because I think they roll perfectly for a rotary mower. I think they're brilliant. And shopping wise, I'm very, very limited, because I have this stack of Ego batteries that I'm just not going to start investing in something else that doesn't use that thing, because I've spent loads. And I will continue to invest and buy extra ones. And I'm very much a limited shopper now. I'm in the market for it, so it'd have to. I guess if it was a petrol one, that might be slightly different, because obviously it's not battery dependent, but it's always kind of nice to add to your collection as well. Sounds a bit daft.
Absolutely. It's in us all, that collection, isn't it? We see photographs of our guys, they've got all the cartridges, the interchangeable cartridges, all neatly stacked on the wall with all their other Ego equipment as well, all neatly lined up. And of course, these battery guys are really clever, because you now might wear out the equipment, but you've already got battery. So now you're going to have to buy another piece of equipment. And if the battery goes, well, you've already got the equipment, so you're going to buy another battery. So it's going to be ever so difficult to break out of that Ego loop that you have now.
Happened to me last Monday. Yeah, my long reach hedge trimmer body broke, just out of warranty. I had 10 days worth of solid hedge cutting on conifers. I went straight out, bought another body without even thinking about it, because it fits and it works, and we got the the job done. And I didn't even think about it, which it's kind of a shame. I couldn't get to go shopping, but do you know what? Like, work's work, and we got the job done.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts on robotic mowers? in terms of because obviously I don't know of a cylinder mower that's robotic. I don't think there's one out there.
Not yet.
Is that something? Is that a market you're paying attention to, or is that seen as like a separate someone else's thing?
I think robotics is really appropriate for grass cutting. What is the best way to get a best lawn? What's the easiest way to get a best lawn? And that's just mow it more regularly, right? The more regularly you mow it, the better the lawn is. All the other stuff, really, mow it more regularly and you'll get a better lawn.
Yeah.
So the robotic going out every day, is absolutely
that life,
that you get a healthy lawn and everything else. And okay, so if I want to get into the finer points of the Allett system and thatch and everything else, but if you just want a nice lawn, then robotics are really, really appropriate.
Yeah.
If you also hate mowing the lawn, then it's even better, right?
Yeah.
So I got involved with robotic mowers. I was importing and distributing a really big robotic mower for professional users.
Yeah.
It's the basic model is still available. But I think the biggest thing is that they're trying to make the robotic mowers really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And the motors aren't big enough, and then the circuit boards aren't big enough. And actually, I don't know anybody that can keep one of those mowers going for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that keeps them going for more than 2 years. And your listeners might put me right on that. And I think if you're really going to get anywhere with that, to make it actually cheaper to mow with robotic mowers, they need to be double the price and 4 times as strong. And that for me, within engineering, when you're looking at value engineering, that is quite doable. But that won't be done in China because they're constantly trying to beat the next manufacturer.
Yeah.
And China will only try and beat them by being cheaper. And for me, that's not really the route forward. I think cylinder mowing could work well. The steering of a cylinder mower, especially with the rear roller, becomes a bit more complex. But we are able now to drive and steer a mower with a remote control, just a wire going to it. So really, next stage would be to do something along those lines.
It's a very strange industry that kind of, because obviously it's people that they want a nice lawn, but they don't really want to do it. They don't want to pay somebody for it. For me, it's a really strange mindset. But they are becoming more popular. We are seeing them. Mike, you've got a customer with one. I don't know if you heard that episode. He destroyed his jacket because he'd left it on the floor. And you've got but that's a really large size.
That's a large property,
Yeah. But not large enough for like a ride on because it's like complicated. But it's a really interesting market that's kind of growing, and everybody seems to be getting involved in it as well. Like every year, there seems to be one more manufacturer kind of joining the party.
There's 100 manufacturers in China all making robotic mowers, and they're not even all here yet. But it hasn't been. I haven't got the latest stats off the top of my head with the robotic mowers. But the interesting thing is in the rest of mainland Europe, where mowing a lawn is not a thing. That they're switching to robotics, and they're selling loads of robotic mowers, and there's 2 European manufacturers. One's really Husqvarna and the other one's in Italy. Well, they don't really care about their lawn that much. They just want it cutting well. And it's been very popular over there. The Americans have very big lawns compared to us as well. So they are, they're either petrol heads and have a big ride on the zero turn, or they'll go robotic. And the sales of robotic mowers, although I think they're growing here in the UK, are still not very high. And there's one reason for that, is that British people love mowing their lawn. It's a thing for us. And that brings me back to why is it, how does Allett survive manufacturing machinery in the UK? 62% of my sales this year have been abroad.
Really? Wow.
And the Union Jack on that machine is the biggest sales feature, because a striped lawn in the rest of the world is known as an English lawn. That is a quintessentially English thing. So, we know what we're doing. We must know what we're doing because we're Englishmen building lawnmowers, and we can have 1 hour podcast just talking about lawnmowers. We're into it, right?
Yeah. So, in terms of your split in terms of, because obviously you've got, I guess, quite a lot of commercial customers, and I'm sure that like you could reel off a list of like stadiums and bits and pieces that use your stuff. What's the rough split between lawn fanatic residential and commercial in terms of your in terms of Allett? Is it 50-50, or are you massively
professional to domestic coming out of this factory here is roughly 50-50?
Right, okay.
That did change over COVID because all the sports stadiums shut and their income stopped, and everyone was sat at home
mowed the lawn,
looking outside thinking, I must get rid of that sandpit and that trampoline, and I need to get my lawn in order. And so we did. It was, compared with our competitor, we have a main competitor. I hope you're not going to mention their name, but they just do professional products. They would have had taken a much bigger downturn. We were growing 30% per year in the 3 years of COVID, really. So that's been tremendous for us, not for everybody, but for us as a business, was very good. And now the professionals coming back again. The stadiums are open and they're earning money. And their mowers that are hardly used for the last couple of years will be wearing out again quite soon. So roughly 50-50, and that depends on the year.
Of course.
The export is definitely rising, still continuing to rise for us.
What's the biggest country outside of the UK then? That's
USA.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, because they do quite like the lawns. To be fair,
they love their lawns, and whether they love them enough to be using an Allett, that's happening. But also they're upping their game in terms of the availability of the turfs and seeds that are fine. If you've ever been to America, you see typically this horrible triffid type grass that you can only cut with a rotary mower at 2.5 inches high minimum height of cut. But there's some really beautiful grasses coming out now. The Bermuda grasses, the zoysias, that need to be mown very low. They're very fine leaved. They're very drought resistant, and they'll take a little bit of winter cold as well without dying off. But they need to be mown low. So that we're following a bit of a trend over in the American market with those types of grasses, because some of the lawns now they've got the right grasses that they can mow low. Tall fescue at 4.5 inches is not, you're never going to mow that with a cylinder mower.
No, because I mean the Americans, I know it's a massive country, different climates, bits and pieces, but they do tend to mow more. The average person tends to mow more often than we do. That's as if you're not a lawn fanatic. So like, there's a lot of customers that would request like a fortnightly cut from a service provider if they just want to keep the lawn down and it not look embarrassing. Whereas that same customer would probably go weekly in America during high seasons because it does grow quicker. So the cylinder mower kind of feels like it fits. I know their property sizes are massive and they have less restrictions. Usually the front lawn you could just ride a zero turn straight onto it, but it does feel like it fits a little bit more with those guys.
And you remember the market is absolutely huge there. So if I get 1 or 2% of the market share here, if I was to even get 0.1% of market share out in America, it would treble the size of my factory overnight. So the demand is just much bigger, and the American market, the average American is much more wealthy than us as well. They can, if they want it, they can afford it too, and we're really grateful for that. But they're also into detail, and they live on housing estates like we do without any fences, so people can see their lawns, and they can get lay down a really good stripe. They like only like a cylinder mower can do, right? So we have that following. YouTube's been amazing for us because they're all doing unboxing videos of their Allett mower and showing people how to use them and why you should scarify and verticut. It's become very organic over there. And we've also got, because of the California market, they're banning petrol engine lawnmowers in the next year or so. So again, that move towards electric and cylinder being really appropriate for that is really good.
100%. They do love a toy over there as well. Like the machinery wise, anything any toys that they can get hold of, they're less conservative than than the British tend to be.
And
Which
there's
does play
big
into it.
garages to put them all in as well, and it's it really so we're investing heavily in that American market and what they want, because they want wider cylinder mowers as well on a
Of course,
domestic
that
budget.
makes sense.
Because their lawns, the stripe sits nicely on a wider stripe, sits nicer on a wider lawn. Otherwise, it just sort of looks a bit like corduroy, and with little thin stripes. So, that we're listening to that market really carefully. It's really interesting. Different types of rollers, because they do mow slightly higher, a lot of them. And the flat roller, lays all the grass down before his cylinder gets to it. So we need to find better ways of getting around that too. But a very exciting market, and the Americans are great. And they're easy to get market research from as well, because they're very, they're not polite like our English customers are. They just tell us, which is fantastic, because you just cut to the chase. Okay, so I'm clear about what I need to do to make a better product.
You don't want fluffy answers when you're going after the detail. 100%. So you guys have attended Saltex for the last couple of years. How obviously that's kind of quite a big mix of like professional sports turf people. It's a mixture of us, similar to us guys. Do you see like a direct benefit from the back of that, or is it like a brand kind of awareness thing? Because it's every manufacturer and every stand I see there kind of seems to have a bit of a different angle on why they want to attend. I just kind of wondered why, because you've been quite consistent from what I've seen over the last few years.
This was my 30th Saltex show, from Windsor show all the way through. So I've been doing that for quite a while now. The world's changed so much, and one of the things I think about, how does a little manufacturer, we just employ 60 people here in Stafford. A little company like this to be global player in cylinder mowers, and have built a brand, certainly in the homeowner market in the last 20 years. We were well known in the professional market for a lot longer than that, but we started from scratch in 2012 with cylinder mowers for the home. But we've been able to do that purely because of digital. Social media has just been the way that we can access that. Our videos get bigger hits than Toros or John Deere's, or just because of the content that we're putting out there.
It's a little quirky, isn't it? It's
quirky. It's down and dirty. Yeah. It's not really sophisticated. We don't hire marketing agencies to write the scripts. We don't even write scripts. Laura, my social media wizard, she's absolutely amazing, and we can go out and shoot an hour's worth of video footage in about an hour and a half. And that's setting up all the machines and everything. It reduces the editing time. As you well know, the editing is the thing that takes the big time, right? And it's just, if you can get it all in the can in about 2 or 3 sections, then it works well. And it's been received well. Don't get me wrong, I'm stuttering and erring all the way through it, but people are after the content, right? They don't. The smooth presentation is, one, really expensive, and two, they're all the same, aren't they? If you can actually share some knowledge at the same time as promote your product, which is a difficult balance, but we try to do that. But it's difficult to do. If you're a $1 billion manufacturer, you've got to get a mower that works with the fuel. You've got to get a model. You've got to get somebody to write the script. Oh, it's a sunny day, and oh dear, we get to the lawn, it's already been cut. And so there's a whole load of things that need to come together to be able to successfully shoot a video. And it's really difficult to pull together unless you are saying, no, we're going to do it, and we'll just make that happen. And that's been amazing for us as a business, as a small business, to be able to compete on a more global level as a very niche supplier of products. They're
100%. I mean, social media, it levels the playing field in terms of advertisement, because Allett's YouTube channel has just as much potential as Toro or John Deere, as you mentioned, and these are much bigger brands in terms of sales and numbers. But you can be there just with a couple of good ideas and a couple of things that just rides the algorithm, to be honest. If you can get that thing that just keeps the retention, yeah, you're laughing. I mean, I've got a very small YouTube channel, and like a couple of the videos are just that I didn't think were particularly great. Just they kept the audience's attention all the way through, and they got a few thousand views. And then like some of that I thought was great just bombed. And it's a really interesting little world, but it levels the playing field for me. And
yeah, absolutely. And you can also get really instant feedback of what's interesting to your customers as well. And I think, our most popular videos, the biggest hits are how to get a dog pee patch recovered.
Yeah.
And using compost in order to fertilize your lawn at seeding time. And I don't think there's hardly an Allett mower that appeared in it, but you're still starting it with "I'm Austin from Allett Mowers." And meanwhile, your right-hand column's full of Allett mower videos, right? So you're in there, and
the thing is, if you provide value without asking for anything, then that's it's the selfless side of social media, and you do kind of have to do that a little bit, and just because it's brand, isn't it? It's all about brand.
It's good for us all, isn't it? And it's that democratization of it all, isn't it? You put it all so well. That's exactly the sorts of things that we're trying to do. And we don't have marketing degrees. We're just trying to, I suppose, evangelize or spread the word. We reckon that every 50-year-old man has a little seed inside him wanting to have a striped lawn. All we've got to do is find a little way of watering that seed so that it enables them to do it. And when they see how simple it is, you know what makes a striped lawn, but a lot of people, it's the first question they ask is how do you actually make stripes on a lawn? Well, here's the learning. Get ready for it. It's that easy.
Yeah, I find the question tends to be, how do I get a nice lawn? And then, because they Googled it, and then it's like, oh, you need to do core aeration and dethatching, you need to spray it, you need to do this 4 times a week. And I think people are just like, whoa. It's like, I meant, how do I get rid of the dandelions and make it look green? And it starts as such a broad thing. And I think sometimes as a service provider, you've got to really realign expectations that these people with nice lawns, it's their hobby. Or it's one of their hobbies. It's not like, I'm not just going to clip my fingers. I can re-turf it, but to be honest, it's not going to, it's just going to go back one day if you don't do X, Y, and Z. But yeah, it's a real, it's a really good industry, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a question for you then. When you're talking about the lawn care industry, and a lot of this is small 1, 2, 3, 4 man businesses.
Yeah.
And you're doing, a lot of them are doing what I call cutting the grass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas I'm looking for customers that want to mow their lawn. So those are my, that's those two phrases just separate my two types of customers. And there's a lot of people that want their lawn mown instead of their lawn cut.
Yeah.
But how do I engage with you and your markets to actually say, I'd like to do what I do at a higher level, but the trick is, how do I find the customers that are prepared to pay more? Because it's more expensive. The machines are more expensive, and actually your knowledge needs to be higher.
Yeah,
the knowledge you have is the only way you earn more money, right? It's not about getting more blisters. It's about having more knowledge. And so how do you accumulate that to actually be able to then start to find the customers that want a higher quality lawn? You earn more money, and that customer doesn't go anywhere else, because all the other guys with a pickup truck and a rake can't compete with you, because they can't do, even if they buy one of my mowers, they're not going to be able to do what you're doing.
No.
So how do I lock into that customer base without having to start my whole Allett franchise lawn mowing service?
Just give me a ring if you ever do that. For me, it's actually the other way around, and so to put it into context, I do exactly that. I make tall grass small, and that is a large part of my business. Now, I would say that there are, out of the about 140 customers that we deal with, over the season, I would probably say that there's 6 to 7 of them that are interested in what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and there are a few that will just give me money to go make it better as well that aren't inside of that. But I would say that there is a few that's like, when I'm scarifying and when I'm verticutting and when I'm doing the renovations, like one chap comes out with a camera and he like takes pictures of me doing bits and pieces, and he gives me a copy if I want to use it for social media. He's a genuine fan. He's just a little bit old to kind of be doing bits and pieces. I actually think it's the reverse way. I think it starts with the manufacturer, and I think it starts with the manufacturer talking about the benefits of having a service provider rather than a service provider selling the benefits of them. And I think it needs to come the other way. But when you're talking about the amount of people that are actually within that market, it is quite small. But I think it starts with you guys. Maybe training sessions and social media advertisement. We went out with Matt today, and we did X, Y, and Z, and he used one of our things on his customer's lawn. I think it starts from the top down rather than us pushing upwards. Would be my opinion on how that market increases. But it is a bit of a challenge, to be honest, because to get me to spend £2,000 on a cylinder mower, it's got to really justify its payback, and there needs to be a sizable market there. And also it's slower, which is obviously going to increase the price. So not only is it like a niche bit of equipment, but it's also more labor hours. So there needs to be but I think that, anyway, to summarize,
I'll challenge you to a race sometime. The mowing with the cylinder mows quicker, as long as the grass is the right height. And
I think you
can mow quicker, lower grass short grass shorter, which is what the cylinder mowers do. So you need to mow it more regularly. So it is quicker to mow, but it's not once a month mowing. No. It's got to be twice a week mowing at least, really, during it. So although it's quicker, you've got to go back there much more often to do it. So that's sort of where the earning potential is, and I'm interested to understand that, because the American market is so much more custom mowing, as they call it, subcontract mowing. There's a lot of that goes on in the States. You go to the States, there's massive trailers just full of zero turn mowers going along the streets, right? And it's not such a big industry here. I think that's changing to some extent, as a lot of people don't expect to do DIY, paint the house, get up on the roof. They don't do their garden either. So as compared with our parents' time, and really, why are you mowing somebody's lawn once a fortnight? It's because they don't want to do it themselves, right?
100%.
And actually, it's not a difficult job, and actually we quite enjoy it, right? So
I think there's definitely an element of. So I've got quite a few customers. I would say we were in the 22 to 35 bracket, and I mean that's not a surprising amount, actually, to be honest, because that age group values the time, and I think when it becomes part of 10 jobs, if you can find a reasonable, what you deem as a reasonable cost to outsource that, you will do. And I think that age group's really good at it. And the older age groups naturally, kind of for health reasons, for time reasons, for wealth reasons, they'll get it. But the younger people really do value the time. And I think as a service it'll grow, and I think it'll keep growing. But it might be a couple of challenging years, and we've already had a couple of challenging years. So we'll see how much we do next year. But it's always a growing market from what I've seen. I think in terms of the enthusiast, which I guess is kind of your residential, non-commercial market, I can only see that growing as well, to be honest, at the moment. And I think for one major reason is chemicals, because I think people are moving so far away from chemicals that anything you can do to kind of negate the need for it, I think people will do. Now, whether they'll go out and buy an Allett when they weren't really that interested in mowing the lawn before, but I can see a massive decline happening in chemical use, and especially with, like, I think, was it Wales last year that decided to or started the process of banning glyphosate, and there's a few, there's rumblings everywhere around it, and I just think with, like, the movement of veganism, and I think the enthusiast market will grow from there, because where you could throw some chemicals down before, you might just need to use some machinery. So that's my personal opinion. Would you would you ever venture into, like, slightly more gardening equipment, or are you quite happy with the cylinder market going kind of narrow and deep? Or would you consider, like, hedge trimmer, for example, or something that's kind of a little bit more, because it's still green industry, but it's not directly.
We're never content, that's for sure, and we always want to, we're competing in a very small market, although we might have the biggest part of the market share globally in this market. It's still a very small market.
100%.
So should we be competing against Hater?
Yeah,
would be our next step, I suppose. Allett's a brand that could do that well because it's about stripes. Could we be moving into other gardening equipment? I think we could, but I have to say, when it comes to things like hedge cutters, if I want to make a better hedge cutter, I've probably got to make it heavier, and that's not. How can I achieve that? Because I really need to make it stronger and lighter and stay sharper for longer, right? So all those things are a little bit sort of go against each other. What could I do? In terms of the real. I look at my base core business right now with Lawn Fanatics. I go into some customers' sheds that have just bought a £4,000 Sterling 51 cylinder mower and all the cartridges, and I go into their shed, and there must be £20,000 worth of equipment in there. Aerators, lawn loots, fertilizer spreaders, 2 or 3 rotary mowers as well. I'm seriously. Their seeding sheets that they put down when they overseed everything. So they've got the money. It's just about finding that appropriate thing, and I'd love to get lawn edging sorted out. We all know that you can mow a lawn and have a really beautiful lawn. It's the edging that really sets it off, right?
Yeah, it does. Especially in the English market, when they're smaller, it's kind of your eyes run directly around. In, like, larger properties, it's slightly less, but, like, especially the smaller ones, it pops.
Yeah, exactly.
It really does.
And we're working on a lawn edging project right now for a customer of ours that lawn edges about 250,000 miles a year. Does lawn edging 250,000 miles a year, and so they're wanting to go electric. There's nothing really robust that does it accurately. So we are looking at little projects like that. Those are more commercial type projects, but it still will end up being a price that actually a Lawn Fanatic with drop off edges that are very time consuming. Actually, if you just whip round once a week and it took you 10 minutes, it would always look fantastic, and you'd always keep the edges true. So there are different things I think that we can do in the professional market. Obviously, there's a lot we can do development wise for that. Going robot in a stadium. For instance, there are a couple of robot mowers being made at the moment, big stadium ones, but they're tech navigation guys that have decided to apply it to lawn mowing and know nothing about lawn mowing or groundsmanship. So they've got something that, it went up and down, did all the stripes, but we've got all the tire marks left there, and where it's turned around is now bare. And we're saying, actually, guys, you're going to have to step aside, and you're going to have to apply the navigation to the mower that we design to go around that, because we understand the lawn mowing and what the groundsmen really want. But you talk to a groundsman still, and he will still say, walking behind a lawnmower is the only way that I can check every square meter of grass.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, if I have a robot, I'm still gonna have to walk over every square meter of grass. But I'm not going to do it as well when I just randomly walk around a 2-acre football pitch.
Cool. Well, have you got any questions for us before we wrap?
No, I hope I haven't been too boring ranting on about lawnmowers. But
no, you made Still in the Mowers come alive. No, I mean, it's been really, really interesting. It's been really
good. Well, if any of you guys want to try a project, I'd love to try and get people that charge for lawn mowing to be, finding that small and niche bunch of customers. Those 35-year-olds that are going to be earning twice as much money in the next 5 years because they value their time, are going to be buying a bigger house and they'll want nicer lawns. I've seen houses where you can add £100,000 with a striped lawn to the value of the property.
Oh yeah.
It's it's as simple as that. Why would they?
It's the majority of people's biggest asset is the house, and protecting that, increasing that, and getting the value that you need from it is massive. And I think that's going back to the States, I think that's very much an American thing in terms of like protecting your biggest asset. But I can see it happening, especially with house prices continually going up. It's what was maybe somebody's second house on the ladder might now be their forever home, as everybody says. But yeah, interesting. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I've thoroughly
Great questions, guys. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
No problem at all. See you soon. Thank you. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. If you would like to share your grassroots story, then please be sure to email us at thegrassrootspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you and hopefully get you a scheduled slot. We'd love to hear your story. Alternatively, if you've enjoyed today's show, then we really would appreciate a well-worded 5-star review on whichever platform you've tuned in from. Thank you very much. Catch you in the next one.